Chapter 6, Part 2 of A Master of Mysteries. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Master of Mysteries by L.T. Mead and Robert Eustace. Chapter 6, To Prove an Alibi. Part 2. I left the station, took a cab, and drove back to my hotel. I asked to see the manager. A tall, dark man in a frock coat emerged from a door at the back of the office and inquired what he could do for me. I begged permission to speak to him alone, and we passed into his private room. "I am in an extraordinary position," I began. "Circumstances of a private nature make it absolutely necessary that I should go to a place called Cressley Hall, about 14 miles from Brent. Brent is 60 miles down the line, and the last train has gone. I could take a special, but there might be an interminable delay at Brent, and I prefer to drive straight to Cressley Hall across country. Can you assist me by directing me to some good job master from whom I can hire a carriage and horses?" The man looked at me with raised eyebrows. He evidently thought I was mad. "I mean what I say," I added, "and am prepared to back my words with a substantial sum. Can you help me?" "I dare say you might get a carriage and horses to do it," he replied, "but it is a very long way and over a hilly country. No two horses could go such a distance without rest. You would have to change from time to time as you went. I will send across to the hotel stables for my man, and you can see him about it." He rang the bell and gave his orders. In a few moments the job master came in. I hurriedly explained to him what I wanted. At first he said it was impossible, that his best horses were out, and that those he had in his stables could not possibly attempt such a journey. But when I brought out my cheque-book and offered to advance any sum in reason, he hesitated. "Of course there is one way in which it might be arranged, sir. I would take you myself as far as Ovenden, which is 25 miles from here. There, I know, we could get a pair of fresh horses from the Swan, and if we wired at once from here, horses might be ready at Carlton, which is another 20 miles on the road. But at our best, sir, it will be between 2 and 3 in the morning before we get to Brent." "I am sorry to hear you say so," I answered, "but it is better to arrive then than to wait until tomorrow. Please send the necessary telegram off without a moment's delay, and get the carriage ready." "Put the horses in at once, John," said the manager. "You had better take the light wagonette. You ought to get there between 1 and 2 in the morning with that." Then he added, as the man left the room, "I suppose, sir, your business is very urgent?" "It is," I replied shortly. He looked as if he would like to question me further, but refrained. A few moments later I had taken my seat beside the driver, and we were speeding at a good round pace through the streets of Liverpool. We passed quickly through the suburbs and out into the open country. The evening was a lovely one, and the country looked its best. It was difficult to believe, as I drove through the peaceful landscape, that in all probability a dark deed was in contemplation, and that the young man to whom I had taken a most sincere liking was in danger of his life. As I drove silently by my companion's side, I reviewed the whole situation. The more I thought of it, the less I liked it. On board the Euphrates, Wickham had been abnormally interested in Cressley. Cressley had himself confided to him his superstitious dread with regard to the turret room. Cressley had come home with a fortune, and if he floated his syndicate he would be a millionaire. Wickham scarcely looked like a rich man. Then why should he know Murdock, and why should a lay figure be put in Murdock's bed? Why also, through a most unnatural accident, should I have lost my train? The more I thought, the graver and graver became my fears. Gradually darkness settled over the land, and then a rising moon flooded the country in its weird light. I had been on many a wild expedition before, but in some ways never a wilder than this. Its very uncertainty, wrapped as it was in unformed suspicions, gave it an air of inexpressible mystery. On and on we went, reaching Ovenden between 9 and 10 at night. Here horses were ready for us, and we again started on our way. When we got to Carlton, however, there came a hitch in my well-formed arrangements. We drew up at the little inn, to find the place in total darkness, and all the inhabitants evidently in bed and asleep. With some difficulty we roused the landlord, and asked why the horses which had been telegraphed for had not been got ready. "We did not get them when the second telegram arrived," was the reply. "The second telegram!" I cried, my heart beating faster. "What do you mean?" "There were two, sir, both coming from the same stables. The first was written desiring us to have the horses ready at any cost. The second contradicted the first, and said that the gentleman had changed his mind and was not going. On receipt of that, sir, I shut up the house as usual, and we all went to bed. I am very sorry if there has been any mistake." "There has, and a terrible one," I could not help muttering under my breath. My fears were getting graver than ever. Who had sent the second telegram? Was it possible that I had been followed by Wickham, who took these means of circumventing me? "We must get horses, and at once," I said. "Never mind about the second telegram. It was a mistake." Peach, the job master, muttered an oath. "I can't understand what is up," he said. He looked mystified and not too well pleased. Then he added, "These horses cannot go another step, sir." "They must, if we can get no others," I said. I went up to him and began to whisper in his ear. "This is a matter of life and death, my good friend. Only the direst necessity takes me on this journey. The second telegram, without doubt, was sent by a man whom I am trying to circumvent. I know what I am saying. We must get horses, or these must go on. We have not an instant to lose. There is a conspiracy afoot to do serious injury to the owner of Cressley Hall." "What? The young gentleman who has just come from Australia? You don't mean to say he is in danger?" said Peach. "He is in the gravest danger. I don't mind who knows. I have reason for my fears." While I was speaking, the landlord drew near. He overheard some of my last words. The landlord and Peach now exchanged glances. After a moment, the landlord spoke. "A neighbour of ours, sir, has got two good horses," he said. "He is the doctor in this village. I believe he'll lend them if the case is as urgent as you say." "Go and ask him," I cried. "You shall have £10 if we are on the road in 5 minutes from the present moment." At this hint, the landlord flew. He came back in an incredibly short space of time, accompanied by the doctor's coachman leading the horses. They were quickly harnessed to the wagonette, and once more we started on our way. "Now drive as if you never drove before in the whole course of your life," I said to Peach. "Money is no object. We have still 15 miles to go and over a rough country. You can claim any reward in reason if you get to Cressley Hall within an hour." "It cannot be done, sir," he replied, but then he glanced at me, and some of the determination in my face was reflected in his. He whipped up the horses. They were thoroughbred animals and worked well under pressure. We reached the gates of Cressley Hall between 2 and 3 in the morning. Here I thought it best to draw up, and told my coachman that I should not need his services any longer. "If you are afraid of mischief, sir, would it not be best for me to lie about here?" he asked. "I'd rather be in the neighbourhood in case you want me. I am interested in this here job, sir." "You may well be, my man. God grant it is not a black business. Well, walk the horses up and down if you like. If you see nothing of me within the next couple of hours, judge that matters are all right, and return with the horses to Carlton." This being arranged, I turned from Peach and entered the lodge gates. Just inside was a low cottage surrounded by trees. I paused for a moment to consider what I had better do. My difficulty now was how to obtain admittance to the hall, for of course it would be shut up and all its inhabitants asleep at this hour. Suddenly an idea struck me. I determined to knock up the lodge keeper and to enlist her assistance. I went across to the door and presently succeeded in rousing the inmates. A woman of about 50 appeared. I explained to her my position and begged of her to give me her help. She hesitated at first in unutterable astonishment, but then, seeing something in my face which convinced her, I suppose, of the truth of my story, for it was necessary to alarm her in order to induce her to do anything, she said she would do what I wished. "I know the room where Mitchell, the old housekeeper, sleeps," she said, "and we can easily wake him by throwing stones up at his window. If you'll just wait a minute, I'll put a shawl over my head and go with you." She ran into an inner room and quickly reappeared. Together we made our way along the drive, which, far as I could see, ran through a park studded with old timber. We went round the house to the back entrance, and the woman, after a delay of 2 or 3 moments, during which I was on thorns, managed to wake up Mitchell, the housekeeper. He came to his window